Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the MassMEP Introduction to Lean Six Sigma Information webinar. I'm Haley Steele. I'm the Marketing Coordinator with MassMEP, and I'll be your moderator for the webinar today. We have behind our scenes our Marketing Director, Christy Grignon, and our IT Manager, Matt Healy. They do a lot of our behind the scenes work. And presenting for you all today are your panelists, Kathee Strozyk and Henry Hall. Both are on the Southeastern Mass team and are project managers with us. So thank you all for joining us. As you can see, your mics are all muted, but you will be able to engage with us throughout the webinar this afternoon through polls, the chat, and Q&A. On the bottom of your screen, you will see the Q&A and the chat buttons. So you can, throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop the questions in the Q&A. We ask that you use the chat button to really, if you want to hit something specific for one of your presenters this afternoon, something specific to either Henry or Kathee. And then if the Q&A, just pop up a question in there so that they can engage with your Q&A throughout the afternoon. The polls that we have, they will actually be popping up throughout the webinar this afternoon. Henry and Kathee will be using those to enhance with their content for the introduction to Lean Six Sigma. So please answer the questions, your best possible answers. If you're not real sure, just give it a whirl and see what we can do. It actually helps give us some information engaging our audience and who was with us this afternoon. The polls will be up for a certain amount of time, and then after so long, they will be closed, and then they will post the results, and then they, like I had stated, Kathee and Henry will be able to use the data in conjunction with their Lean Six Sigma content. We do have an hour set aside for the webinar today. We feel it's enough time to cover the content and the Q&A, but out of respect for your time, we will do an end at the 2 o'clock hour. If there are any questions that we haven't answered in the Q&A, Kathee and Henry will answer those questions directly, and we will send them back to the attendee that posted the question through email. So we will be sure to answer all questions today. May not be live while we're on for the 1 hour, but we will definitely do it afterwards. Lastly, upon completion of the webinar, you will receive a notification to complete an evaluation for the webinar. These valuations are very important to us at MassMEP. They provide data for the trainings and also insight for continuous improvement on the training content that is delivered by our internal staff, which we are doing today, and also our third parties for other trainings. We are recording the webinar today for proprietary and internal training purposes. We will also be sending out a thank you email at the end of the webinar. You may not receive it today, but definitely by Monday. And in that email, you will receive the link to watch the video from today's presentation. So I'm going to turn the webinar over to our panelists, Kathee and Henry, for your intro to Lean Six Sigma. Let's begin.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to our introduction to Lean Six Sigma. As Haley mentioned, a thank you for your attendance. My name is Kathee Strozyk, and I'm a project manager here at MassMEP. I'm also a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, having gotten my certification from the George Group back in 2008. I've worked in the continuous improvement, both Lean and Six Sigma, since about the mid-90s when I was introduced to Six Sigma as being part of Allied Signal. Done continuous improvement in at Honeywell, J&J. Worked for Accenture for a while, where I was involved in the largest Lean Six Sigma deployment at the U.S. Army, and served as a Master Black Belt with them. That's where I received my Master Black Belt certification. I hope you find this session informative. As Haley mentioned, if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A or the chat, and we'll attempt to answer them as we go along. Okay, with that, we'll get started here.
Okay? Oh, wait, don't forget me.
Okay, well, what we're gonna go here. You can do it at your introductions.
All right.
Okay, let me introduce my cohort here. my esteemed colleague, Henry Hall.
Hi, Henry Hall, MassMEP. Been with MassMEP now for pushing a year. Prior to that, I got my Six Sigma master. No, I'm not a master. My black belt training from a company called SBTI out of Texas. I was part of the initial what we call breakthrough leaders, Six Sigma black belts at Osram, Sylvania back in 1998. And from there, I progressed into lean, our lean training program. So I've been doing this now for approximately 22 years. So I think I've seen pretty much it all. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Any advice, happy to answer it.
Okay, and with that, looking over, we've got a pretty large group here. So Haley and Christy had forwarded me the attendance list. Looks like we have attendees from all sorts of manufacturing companies. We welcome you all. We've got a representative and a peer from our New Hampshire MEP that's participating with us, as well as several individuals from the Massachusetts government organization, a couple that have a .gov on them. So welcome you all. I hope you learned something today and you find this session to be valuable. Okay, now as a quick agenda, introductions, we've done those. I'd like to talk to you kind of about what we're seeing in today's climate. We'll talk a little bit about what Six Sigma is. For those of you who aren't familiar, we'll talk about the Lean Six Sigma roadmap, why the initiative and the program is valuable, a couple measures of success and stories of projects that have been successfully fulfilled. We'll talk a little bit about MassMEP offerings and then a Q&A afterwards. And right now we've got a poll to launch.
Ooh.
Henry, can you please do that?
I'd like to think I did. Are you familiar with what Six Sigma is? Yes, no, somewhat familiar. Or can I count to 6? All right, I'll end the polling. And so, Kath, it looks like 9 out of the 16 voters came in with yes, they're familiar with what Six Sigma is. No, 2 people are not, and 5 somewhat familiar.
Okay, we have a nice mixed bag here then. Great, thank you very much for responding, everyone. Okay, what we're seeing in today's environment from today's climate. From a technology standpoint, there's change like all over the place. I mean, with Industry 4.0 coming on, you know, technology is occurring at a much faster pace than it ever was in the past. I mean, competition is out there. Everyone is looking at shifting the playing field. So you're always out there trying to advance your company or your business, because the competition is always just one step behind you, as well as people. People are out there, and you know, new generations coming in, people shifting jobs changing. So we have people constantly trying to adapt to change within our business. Not to say the least of the change of just our recent environment in the last few months here. So our climate is constantly changing. So now what we've seen today with our clients today is that, you know, quality was once, you know, a differentiator in the marketplace. Now it's pretty much a given, okay? Customers are constantly demanding shorter lead times. What was acceptable yesterday is no longer acceptable today. We, even as consumers, are constantly looking for shorter lead times to get things. I mean, that's why Amazon Prime has done so well. We want it tomorrow. We don't want it in a week. We want it tomorrow. Customer loyalty and retention is continuing to be critical. The adage that it's easier to retain a client rather than getting a new one is especially true. And we always have that downward pricing pressure of lower cost and trying to get more out of less, output with less. So lowering our invested capital. So with so many different things to go and attack, you know, it's sometimes hard to be aggressive when you don't know who to hit. Okay, who can benefit from Lean Six Sigma? If you're an organization that's looking to reduce your costs due to variation in your processes, Lean Six Sigma can help you. Or if you're looking at improving your uptime or even reduce your unexpected downtime, this is a tool that will help your business. Reducing product lead times with the integration of Lean into it, which has got a focus on lead time reduction. Combining the two initiatives can be very much a benefit for you. Or improving introduction of your products. Again, trying to reduce that lead time. Or lastly, the element of Six Sigma has engaging your employees. It is an initiative that reaches out to a broad cross-section of your business to get them engaged in your processes for improvement. And then I guess lastly, and this is a new one, was really, you know, with Industry 4.0 that's going on, we have, there's a lot of data that's being available in your businesses, that's being collected. And Lean Six Sigma can be a tool to help you utilize that data for your improvement initiatives.
Oh, we have another poll.
Another poll, okay. Is 99% good enough?
So 1% mistakes, 1% errors. Is that good enough? All right, so we still got a 16. All right, we're going to, looks like everyone's answered, so I'm going to end the polling. Now I'll share the results. So the results are, Kath,
No.
is 99% good enough? 6 people say yes. 11 people say no.
Okay, well, let's go and look at that.
Let's explore that.
Okay. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about what Lean Six Sigma is. Lean Six Sigma is really, it's a vision and it's a philosophical commitment to our customers to offer the highest quality, lowest cost products with a focus on voice of the customer. You'll hear me say voice of the customer quite a bit here. That is one of the big assets of Lean Six Sigma, is you're focusing on the voice of the customer, okay? Getting to our 99% is good enough. You'll hear Six Sigma. What does that mean? It's a metric that demonstrates quality levels at 99.9997% performance for all products and processes. So if you're at 99% good, that is at a 3.8 Sigma level. So if you were 99% good, we would have unsafe drinking water for almost 15 minutes a day, or 200,000 wrong prescriptions each year, or no electricity for almost 7 hours each month. I don't know about you, but boy, when my electricity goes out, if it's out for more than a few minutes, people are upset. Imagine it having it out for 7 hours each month, okay? Or 5,000 incorrect surgical operations each week, okay? So you can see Lean Six Sigma is focused on that quality metric, you know, and trying to drive that to a higher level, okay? Some people refer to it as a benchmark for all of our product and process capability for comparison in best of class, okay? And lastly, you'll hear the DMAIC terminology talked. It's a practical application of statistical tools and methods to help us in our problem solving and the define, measure, analyze, improve, and control of all of our processes, okay? So as one of the fathers of quality really quoted some time ago, Edward Deming, is that To improve quality, you automatically improve productivity. You stay in business and you provide jobs. It's so simple. So by focusing on quality, that will impact your productivity. You know, and Deming really focused on, you know, having better design of products and higher levels of uniform product quality. And if you focus on that, then you'll result in improvements in not only your internal quality, but in your customer satisfaction, and then your improved ability to service customers. Again, pulling in that voice of the customer that's so critical. A little history of what Lean Six Sigma is. Well, Lean started taking root in the early 1900s. You know, it's championed by Henry Ford. It focused on lowering costs by streamlining operations. He had that assembly line vision, linking manufacturing throughout the supply chain, vertical integration, and focused training. Now, Toyota took that in the 1950s and really developed the ideas in the Toyota production system that you'll hear often linked with Lean. Six Sigma, it came up through Motorola in the late 1980s as really a quality management methodology. The fathers of Six Sigma, Bill Smith and Michael Harry, you know, they forged a path through, you know, Motorola that really, you know, looked at applying Six Sigma as a process management discipline. And as a result, they were recognized with the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. Shortly thereafter, and based upon their successes, Allied Signal, of which I was part of that organization, and GE really took it to heart and took that leadership, that methodology, and under the leadership of Larry Bossidy and Jack Welch in the 90s, extended it throughout their businesses and connecting it to results. And even at GE, some of the executive compensation was tied to the success of Six Sigma. After which it was quickly adopted by a lot of large corporations and Fortune 500 corporations as an effective way of improving their business performance. And you can see on the right-hand side of this slide here, I mean, it went through, and it has gone through companies that both did manufacturing, you know, in the Lockheed Martins and the Sony and the Cranes and Polaroid, to service organizations, and Merrill Lynch and Bank of America had a great deal of success with their launch of Lean and Six Sigma. Okay, meaning of Six Sigma. The goal of Six Sigma is to align the voice of the customer, again, with the voice of the process, because the Six Sigma looks at everything is a process, and a process has a natural variability to it. So you want to understand what the voice of the process is telling you and what the voice of your customer is. And when those differ, you have to, it'll address the gap between those, so you can meet expectations of the voice of your customer. The philosophy is, like I said, everything is based on a process. All processes have inherent variability to them, whether that process is processing invoices or whether it's machining a component in a factory. All of those processes have in itself inherent variability. And Lean Six Sigma very much stresses on using data to understand the cost of each of such variability and to drive process improvement decisions as a result. And I'll give you an example of that, the difference between the voice of the process and the voice of the customer, okay? Shown in red here is a bell curve of what your process and the variability of that process is normally producing. But what you have in the blue is really what your customer wants. So you have to understand what your process is telling you and then set targets so that you can meet the expectations of what your customers are. So you might ask the question, well, where does variability come from? variability can come from a number of different places. And if you guys are familiar with the Ishikawa or a fishbone diagram, I picked these right off of that. I mean, you can have variability from your manpower, the types of training you're doing, the level, the skill level of your employees, sometimes the ability of your employees, which some people would say would go back to the training and the skill level. Material variations, you know, the quality, the size, maybe the amount in manufacturing, even incoming requests for quotations. If you're looking at a quotation process, you can have variability in that material as it comes in. Machine variances, you know, how you're maintaining your equipment, how you're running it, what kind of speeds it is, even the inherent design of it to begin with introduces variability into your process. Your methods, not having a documented process, not having people trained to a best method. Measurement variabilities, calibration of your equipment, your devices, even eyes. When I worked with the Army, we did calibration on how people looked at a particular document on routing, I'd say explosives throughout the country. And were they all interpreting it the same way so they could assign the proper trucking company to it? Or Mother Nature variability, heat, cold, humidity. And really all this variability, and as you look at in Six Sigma, as you try to reduce that variability, you're reducing that waste. And as you're reducing waste in your processes, you're really giving the business the opportunity to increase their profitability. Okay, now I think we have a poll, don't we, Henry?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Funny you should mention that. So, are you familiar with the DMAIC roadmap? Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. It's not high if you can spell it, because we can all spell it. All right, so we're gonna, looks like. Ooh,
how are we doing?
All right, this is how we're doing.
Oh, we got about a 50-50 there, you know.
Of the 19 respondents, we had 10 are familiar with the DMAIC roadmap, and 9 are not familiar with the DMAIC roadmap. So you're in for a treat.
We're in for a treat, yeah. Within what we call a 95% confidence interval, we probably are split 50-50.
That's a good Six Sigma tool.
Okay, the roadmap. I'll go over quickly what the 5 phases when we talk DMAIC is. The first phase we refer to as define, which is where we're defining what the opportunity is, both from the business and the customer perspective. So we're collecting that voice of the customer and voice of the business and understanding what we're going to go after. Okay. Measure, we're going to go in and look at and understand that process and what it's currently performing at. Then analyze it, searching for those key factors, those critical X's we call in Lean Six Sigma that really have the biggest impact on the process performance and being able to improve that performance. So you're looking at determining what those root causes are and putting corrective action into place, which leads us to the next one is you're going to improve that process, develop those solutions for those critical X's, and then lastly, go in and implement a solution and look at that solution and monitor it to make sure that the solution you have put in place is in fact controlled. So we don't go back to the old state. So a combination of all of this, people will, and you'll see it was referred to as DMAIC, okay? D-M-A-I-C, which is just the first letter from each one of these phases, okay? Now I'll go into a little more detail in each one of these phases, okay? First off is the define phase. And we'll look at identifying projects. And when we look at identifying projects, we look at making sure in Lean Six Sigma that they're aligned to your strategy, your customer, your financials, with your business. So they are the biggest impact projects that you have and you can tackle in your business, okay? Then you'll go off and launch a team, create a charter with boundaries and goals and who will be on the team. The team will then clarify a little bit of what that process is, gather a little more detailed voice of the customer, voice of the business, and then translate that voice of the customer into requirements and create a stakeholder and a communication plan in order to launch the product.
Translating that voice of the customer to requirements is probably the most critical phase in the define step, because your customers aren't always specific. They kind of know what they want, but they don't know how to express it. So you got to work with them to make sure you fully understand what that voice is or what they're looking for, and then how does it apply to the requirements and the outputs of your process.
Okay. And another key element is this toll gate. So at the end of every phase, your process is set up where the team will present to their leadership group on what they found, so that is in fact what was chartered and identified and selected was in fact what the intention was, and then they're given the go to move on to the next phase, which is measure. And in the measure phase, they'll get into a little detail of mapping out their process. You could use a tool called value stream mapping as one. Process flow diagrams are also another one. They'll understand and come up with what those critical X's I referred to, those things that should be collected because they believe they're going to have an impact on changing the process. You're also going to want to make sure that the system that they're using is validated. Okay, if I'm going to use a ruler to measure a process, I want to make sure I have fine enough detail in it that I can get repeatable and reproducible results.
Kathee, early in my career, we used to use rulers to measure small light bulb components. And one of my first things I did was I picked up one of our pieces and walked around to the design engineer, the inspector, and everybody in between. And I said, measure this part. And I got the range from someone measured it and said it was too long. And then someone measured and said it was the same. It was measured the exact same part and said it was too short. So it's the same part. Someone said it was too long. Someone said it was too short. So your measurement system has to be adequate to what you're trying to measure, or you're going to really start to over adjust your process.
Very good point, Henry. And that measurement system, regardless of whether you're looking at attributes, yes, no, good, bad, there are tools within Lean Six Sigma that you can validate that measurement system versus a measurement of a part that Henry had mentioned, which is more of a continuous process. Okay. Other steps we'll go through here is developing your sampling plan and data collection, any kind of process capability you might have, and then going off again and determining where your baseline is. And at the end of it, you want to do a toll gate to make sure that you've defined the problem right and you're gathering information so that you're ready to move on and analyze your issues. And in analyze, you'll do a little, first off, you'll look at it and say, are there things that we can do and we can do very quickly? We call those quick hits. Just go off and do them. Kind of Nike, just do it, okay? And I've been involved in projects where you find little things that can tweak a process, and you know it's not going to be the total solution, but it'll advance things a little bit. Just go off and do them right away, okay? Leave the bigger process to do a deeper dive into it, okay? Here we'll determine what those critical X's are. We'll look at some graphic analysis, do our data analysis of it, do some root cause problem solving. This is where you start to get into some of the statistics that you'll hear people talking about, okay? Because you want to make sure during your analysis that you're looking at meaningful data.
This is a prime area for bringing in people off the floor. If you're looking at a specific piece of equipment or a process, getting people off the floor to help understand what the potential critical X's are.
Okay, and here is where you find out where those are and you prioritize your X's and the root causes, because the next phase we're going to go into is to improve it. So we're going to go through another toll gate review, make sure we've got all our ducks in a row to advance to the next phase, which is improve. And in improve, we'll generate a series of solutions. We can use some of our lean best practices here. We'll narrow down, because you'll have lots of ideas, narrow down what you want to do, select a solution, kind of create that future state map of where you're looking at. And then if you need to optimize it, there's some tools in Lean Six Sigma, design of experiments you could use, do some risk assessment of the suggestions you're proposing, develop a implementation plan. I always suggest that you pilot it if you can. And once you pilot it and you're getting some good results, you go to your toll gate review and then go off and launch the solution. And then lastly, we're going into control, which is a phase that often teams and other initiatives will go in and say, well, we found a solution, we implemented it, and a project over with. DMAIC really stresses the last phase, which is control, which is going in and looking at what your ongoing measurements you're going to have, how often you're going to review those, make sure that all the documentation around it is really completed so you can sustain that improvement. Maybe create a storyboard so you can publicize and celebrate the project. A communication plan on people who need to be informed of what those, of the changes that have been made. Ooh, I'm going in the wrong direction there. Sorry about that. And lastly, transition ownership to the person who's going to have it longer term. Okay, and create that final toll gate review that says that yes, everything, all the ducks are in the row, it's been transitioned, and it's successful on whether it's your office environment or on your manufacturing floor.
So that DMAIC roadmap is the heart and soul of the Six Sigma process.
Okay, you'll hear about belt levels. I'm sure you guys have all, heard about, a black belt, a green belt. What are all of these belt levels that we talk about? Okay, and this is part of the Lean Six Sigma built-in, infrastructure. That not only did we say early on that we were going to look at strategic projects, but we have an infrastructure to go in and execute those, okay? And a way to deploy it throughout the organization. So at the lowest level, or white belt, we're looking at people who have kind of an introductory understanding of what Lean Six Sigma is. They work on project teams. They might be doing a little data collection. Okay, a yellow belt will have another level of skills. There'll be active participants on project teams and doing the process reviews. Green belts is the next level up, and at each level you're going to have fewer and fewer number of people. And once you get into some of the green belt levels, you're starting to get into some of the introductory statistics. Okay, not real heavy, but understanding the statistics so that you can tell whether if you put a change into place that in fact it has changed your process. And those green belts can lead projects. And they can also work to help the next level, which is the black belts. The black belts have a higher level of understanding of the methodology and some of the statistics that are involved and the methodologies. And they'll be leading your more difficult projects normally, and they'll actually try to train and coach your green belts and yellow belts, okay? Most companies, I'll be quite honest with you, are working, most of their projects are in that green belt range. Those are your problem solvers, okay? The black belts will help train those people, but the green belts will be leading many projects that most people come to think of. Okay, with the help of yellow belts and white belts. Now at the top of it is the master black belts, and they're really the ones that are helping train and coach the black belts, sometimes the green belts in some organizations. I've trained kind of both of them. They're also, in some organizations, kind of that champion for the initiative within the business. Okay, and that's all, you know, dependent upon the size of your organization. But that's where we start to talk about the infrastructure that's in place.
All right, I think we have another poll coming.
Yes, we do.
Oh, there it is. So what does Lean Six Sigma improve in a process? The non-value added, the value added? I have no idea. Kathee and Henry, please help.
Who came up with these polls? Always fun.
All right, still voting is still open. The polls have not closed yet. Oh, still going. All right. And then the polls are going to close in 3, 2, 1.
Show me those results.
Oh, here they come. So, what does Lean Six Sigma improve in a process? The non-value added, we have 2 out of the 18 respondents. Value added, 15 out of 18. And I have no idea, probably one of our colleagues, Kathee, said that one.
Yeah, probably somebody being funny there. I'll tell you what, Lean Six Sigma really is looking at both of them, okay? Because it's an integration of 2 very powerful approaches. I mean, we have, oh, shoot. Okay, here we go. We have Lean, and Lean is really looking at that piece of it, that non-value added activity or waste within a process, really focused on reducing lead time, reducing waste. So Lean is focused on the non-value added piece of the business. It's got a very high bias for action, using a lot of Toyota tools, and you'll hear, you know, in Lean, doing Kaizen events, value stream mapping, pull systems, Kanban, okay? And then Six Sigma is really focused on that quality cost and has that infrastructure to it. So it's looking at some of that value-added activities and trying to make it better, okay? Utilizing the DMAIC tools, okay? So 2 very powerful initiatives that are blended together, where Lean is really enabling speed to help Six Sigma quality. So with Lean, you're having faster cycles of learning, you're experimenting, you're getting things done, getting all that waste out of the system. And Six Sigma is enabling that speed. So it's looking for fewer defects, less time spent on rework. So they really complement each other very, very well.
Defects, if you recall, if you're familiar with the 8 deadly sins of manufacturing, or the 8 deadly weights, defects is one of the 8 deadly sins. So Six Sigma does attack the wastes in a very small way, but important way. Okay.
Okay. So here's another visual of it. You know, Lean Six Sigma really combines that time-based strategy that's inherent in Lean with some of the cultural and analytical tools of Six Sigma. So there's a lot of overlap. So, you know, and I'll be honest with you, that's why Lean and Six Sigma, where in many companies they were launched independently, what people quickly found is merging the 2 of them together can be a very, very powerful, you know, strategy to have. When I was with Allied Signal, we launched Six Sigma separate from Lean. And as I grew within that organization, we actually took the 2. We took our Lean experts, they were called, and our black belts and green belts, and we put 1 each on teams in order to be able to make our process improvement initiative go faster, okay? So I'll give you some graphics, and I love these next ones here, okay? When companies look at their traditional processes, okay, and if we look at, hey, we've got lots of work in process here, and we ride our little boat with our process across it, because underneath that water, we've got waste of transportation time and operation time and rework and setup time, okay? And we cover those all up by just putting more work in process, okay? So our boat runs along the water with lots of whip in it. And because of that, we have long lead times because the process has no idea where the time traps are. So many of you may have heard of just-in-time improvement. And what just-in-time did when it was launched, it just said, just take the whip out of there, okay? And what we quickly found was that if you take all the whip out of a process, you're gonna hit these road bumps, and that's gonna delay things. So you're gonna hit a road bump, you're gonna have to fix it before you can move on, okay? And what Lean Six Sigma does very nicely is it allows you to lower the water, and as you lower the water, you can kind of see your time traps in it, and your Six Sigma tools will kind of come in there and grind that off, so then you can go in and lower the water a little more. So it'll help you understand where those time traps are, and also to prioritize attacking the worst one and then proceeding to the next one. So they work hand in hand. The lean piece of it lowers the water, Six Sigma grinds the rocks. Lower the water, grind the rocks.
And whip, in terms of lean, is one of the eight deadly sins or 8 wastes.
The waste of inventory, yes. And by reducing your whip, you can reduce your lead time, which would allow you then to be more responsive to your customer. Again, focusing voice of the customer. The customer wants it faster. You see that the customers are looking for things faster. Okay.
It also gives your customer less time to change his mind.
Well, it allows you to be more responsive to the marketplace as well. That as your customer demand changes, you're able to respond to it. Okay. Lean Six Sigma really helps you develop people. I talked about the infrastructure and the hierarchy of all the belts. So we get everybody involved within the business. So as a result of getting people involved, you develop a sense of ownership and accountability. So we have, you know, white belts and yellow belts at shop associates and supervisors, or their white belts and yellow belts, some green belts in there. Leadership has a place in it, and that they're reviewing projects, making sure that these are the highest priority ones that are moving towards your business strategy, advancing that, attacking the right things at the right time, okay? So success is felt, and it drives success all the way up the organization because people throughout the organization are involved. And it develops people by involving people in the process through active participation on engaged, accountable teams. Builds trust through transparency and shared understanding. People are collecting the data, analyzing and sharing it. So there's that inherent transparency and understanding. It offers the opportunity to build respect through team building and skill set acknowledgement. It allows you to take some of your people and really expose them to additional skills that make them better employees, better problem solvers for your business. And then again, develops that sense of ownership and accountability by increasing employee effectiveness at delivering sustained results.
No one knows more about a process than the people that do it day in and day out. And you want them motivated, and you want to extract as much as they know about the process as possible.
Okay, deployment principles that work. You know, having that infrastructure and executive engagement, management champion there, project sponsors, because every project will have to have a sponsor. And those projects are tied to business results. Selecting your belts from your future leaders of the company so that you're giving them the skills so they can advance. Allowing them to have some team leadership skills. And then this I guess I referred to it before as that project identification and selection. So it's linked to strategic objectives and managing those, managing your projects that are in your pipeline. So you're working on the most critical ones in your business. And I always say your Lean Six Sigma project should really pay as you go. So as you deploy them to a project, you should be seeing those results in your business so that, you know, the dedication of your skilled people are essentially getting you business results as they work on projects. And then lastly, having this whole framework and Lean Six Sigma program in place, it really allows you to have a performance platform that allows you to move to future innovations.
Oh, I think we have another poll.
We have another poll. Thank you for reminding me. I almost missed that one, Henry.
All right. That's what the blue triangle's for. Okay, so why do companies need Lean/Six Sigma? Reduces dependency on tribal knowledge, reduces the higher hanging fruit, provides a disciplined approach to problem solving, increases profits, none of the above, or all of the above. I'll give you another 10 seconds. All right, 2, 1. All right. So, and the results.
Okay, here
Let me
they
share the
come.
results. You got to click on share the results to share the results, apparently. So,
I love it.
Why do companies need Lean Six Sigma? Looks like the overwhelming answer was 15 or 88% of our group today chose the right answer, all of the above.
Oh, great. Okay, they'll make this next one really easy because the question is, how can companies benefit? You do reduce that dependency on tribal knowledge. You're starting to make decisions based on facts rather than that gut feel that often is within businesses. You're using facts. You make fact-based decision making.
And Kath, my favorite statement is, "In God we trust. All others bring data."
Oh, okay. Because of some of the hierarchy and the number of tools that as you're going up the pyramid, up into the green belts and the black belts, you're really giving yourself the ability to really attack some of those higher hanging fruit. Because we often go in and you can pick up the stuff that's down below and fix those real quick. And those are kind of those just do it projects. And this allows you to get into a little more detail, understanding, interlinking between pieces within your business to attract those higher hanging fruit of those harder projects to execute. It is a very disciplined approach to problem solving. You saw as I went through the 5 phases, the different tools you have to use, and having those reviews at the end of every phase to make sure that the team has covered all the basics to advance to the next phase. And lastly, it improved profits, increase profits, improve profits. Okay, so now we ask the question, why do companies require Lean Six Sigma? You know, if you have inconsistent service delivery and quality, that will reduce your sales revenues, okay? If you can't deliver on time, maybe a customer will go to somebody else, okay? And when we looked at processes, about 95% of process lead time is really spent in some of those non-value added activities, especially waiting. Seems that as the Japanese refer to as parts that are sleeping, processes that are sleeping, okay? And if you can reduce your error rate just 10%, you can increase your cycle time by up to 40%. And you know, the lean tools that are inherent in Lean Six Sigma will allow you to accelerate that lead time reduction. And Six Sigma gives you a set of tools that will allow you to bring your process, your value added stuff under control and reducing that variation, reducing the number of defects. Okay.
Deming said your #1 goal from quality improvement perspective is to reduce variation. That's the first thing you should do.
Okay. Now I would ask the audience here, these are questions posed to you, is if you do your customer valued activities when you look at your process, does it consume less than 5% of your lead time? You might have an opportunity to use Lean Six Sigma, okay? If you could deliver products in 50 to 80% less time, would it be a competitive advantage to you? If you could reduce your cost by 20%, would it be a financial benefit to your business? Okay. If you could reduce your WIP and your finished goods inventory, would it be a benefit to your business? And if you had a reduced lead time, what revenue growth, what opportunities to take on additional business would it provide to you if you could reduce your lead time and increase your capacity? Now think about that. Think about that as you're thinking about whether should we do Lean Six Sigma. Okay. Just quickly here, some measures of success that people have seen. This is a project that that was at a fiberglass insulation company. They had they were a lot of scrap and setup times, and what their results were is they were able to, through looking at 12 improvement opportunities over 3 months, they were able to generate 1.2 million in savings by increased capacity and reduced internal shipping costs. They also had 34 other projects that they wound up implementing over their following 6 months, which generated another 200K, as well as enhanced safety, okay, which is always a good thing to do. Here's a black belt project that used this concept of design of experiments. This company was a telecommunications company that had this problem for like 10 years. It was going on, and of these voids in there. So they deployed a black belt team to solve this problem. And the company was able to eliminate those voids, and it not only saved them money, but it provided them a product advantage in the marketplace. Their quality internally was better, as well as in the field, and then an internal cost advantage. Great project. And here's an example of a government project that was a transactional process where they were losing a lot of business and not given the opportunity to bid on contracts because they had so many errors in their process. So as a result, they reduced their processing errors by 60%, generated $310,000 in operating income. And I think a big win was they increased their opportunity to be able to bid on future contracts, which had been denied to them. So great success stories, okay? Great quote from Albert Einstein: when we look at what you're doing today and what you can do when you implement a Lean Six Sigma problem or initiative is, you know, as Albert Einstein says, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them. So you got to have something different in there. And if anyone's a baseball fan, we all relate to this one. You know, nobody would have thought that baseball could be improved by looking at statistics in it, but they, the A's took looking at all the various information that's collected in baseball, made it a data-driven analysis, and as a result of that, they changed the way baseball is now managed and teams are managed now. Can it do the same thing in your business? Okay. Lots of companies have deployed this. As I mentioned earlier, here's a whole array of them, both small companies, large companies, transactional, manufacturing, a whole wide range across many industries. Many years. Great success stories there. Now, we MassMEP, we have a number of offerings when it comes to Lean Six Sigma. We offer the white, the yellow, the green, and the black belt level. And we can even do the white and the yellow belts virtually or in person, your choice. We're looking, we're looking now at what pieces of even green belt perhaps that we could be doing, virtually. So sorry it took so long. I guess we're up to questions. Do we have any questions in the chat box there, Henry?
Well, we had one talking about tribal knowledge. Tribal knowledge, isn't necessarily inaccurate or wrong. It's just potentially not data driven. Usually tribal knowledge is based on a lot of experience, but not really firm experimentation.
Right, I would agree with you. Yeah, sometimes that tribal knowledge, you'll find in some instances, I mean, people are amazing. You'll be able to validate that and verify it through using statistics, that's the right path to take. But on the other side of it, oftentimes when you look at the data, you'll learn something in that data that while you had a piece of it in tribal knowledge, you really didn't understand the full picture of it. And now you can make that next level of improvement, that instead of making little incremental changes, you can make that step function on your improvements. So not to disregard tribal knowledge. There's a lot of very smart people out there, a lot of empirical knowledge, no doubt.
Any others? No. You get 2 more minutes.
Oh, it looks like we have a question. There was something that popped up top there.
I think it was more of one of our colleagues just asking, is there a better way to, I think we could probably go on and go back and forth with this whole tribal knowledge statement right now. And then we're going to lose the point of what we're actually here for. So we're going to stay focused on what we're here for. If anybody has any questions for Kathee or Henry regarding their presentation this afternoon, I think that would be where we're trying to keep this right now. But, thank you for everyone that has joined us this afternoon. We are going to end right on time. I'll put the website and I will also include Kathee and Henry's emails, if that works for everyone, so we can, you can get in contact with them directly if you have any further questions. Kathee and Henry, thank you very much for putting this on for everyone this afternoon. We appreciate you taking your time as well in presenting this out there for everyone. Thanks for everybody that joined us. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so if you guys are all set, we'll let our panelists continue on with their afternoon, and everybody else on this Friday afternoon enjoy this beautiful weekend.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. Do we have an evaluation to send out to them, Haley?
It goes on right after the end of the webinar. When they end, it will come on right directly into their email, and they will be able to fill out the evaluation and go from there.
No, we appreciate your feedback, and we're hoping we have some opportunities out there that we can work with you, both Henry and I and the MassMEP team. We love working on this stuff. As you can tell, we have a lot of energy and excitement over it. So
I'd love to help you.
Yes. All right. Well, all right. So it's o'clock. So thank you everyone for this and enjoy your afternoon and have a great weekend. And thank you, Kathee and Henry.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.